Good evening. Welcome to the controversial and notorious Napoleon Memoirs. Why is this controversial and notorious? Because we're telling the truth. All right, so we're going to go through these books. Hopefully, we're going to learn some languages. That's what I'm after. I always wanted to learn Italian. This is a great opportunity for us to appreciate all these beautiful languages. So we're getting into the memoirs of Count Charles Tristan de Montsalon. This sly character, very mysterious. I hope I'm gonna find out what's up with him someday. Because I wonder if he flipped, because he ended up in jail later on with Napoleon III. Was he a plant then too? But he fooled Napoleon III. Or did he fool Napoleon III? Did he flip? I don't know. We'll see. But I don't see how he wasn't the person who was poisoning Napoleon. I just don't see it. And this is not my idea. I did not come up with this, but I did the research. And I think he really was the poisoner of Napoleon. And I believe his wife started it. But that's another story. All right. It's a very complicated situation with Napoleon and the Montsalons. There was an aristocrat couple who happened to follow Napoleon to St. Helena. Actually, Napoleon, I think, almost fired Montsalon for marrying his wife, Albine, because she was such a, how do you put it? Let's just call her a wanton woman. And Napoleon did not really like too many of them around his generals. So he distanced himself from Montsalon when he married Albine, who eventually did follow him to St. Helena. And I think Napoleon ended up with Albine, if you know what I mean. So very juicy stories. Albine was smart. She was, I think the girl in the relationship was this guy, Montsalon. I think she was the mastermind. She was super smart. I think that's why Napoleon liked her. All right, so we're going to get back into the Montsalon memoirs. But this guy was seductive and he was handsome. He looked good in a uniform. It's Montsalon. All right. Orders from Admiral Keith to Captain Maitland, commander of His Majesty's ship, Bellerophon, in Rhodes at Start Bay, August 6, 1815. All arms of every description are to be taken from the French of whatever rank who are on board His Majesty's ship under your command. The arms are to be carefully collected and remain under your charge as long as the French remain on board the Bellerophon. They will afterwards be under the charge of the captain of the ship, to which the said individuals may be transferred. This order was not fully executed. Our swords were left us, and only the firearms were taken. Instructions to the ministers of Admiral Cockburn. When General Bonaparte leaves the Bellerophon to go on board the Northumberland, it will be the most suitable time for Admiral Cockburn to have the effects examined, which General Bonaparte may have brought with him. The Admiral will allow baggage, wines, and provisions, which the General may have brought with him to be taken on board the Northumberland. Among the baggage, his table service shall be understood to be included, unless his plate be so considerable as to seem rather an article to be converted into ready money than for real use. His money, his diamonds, and his saleable effects, including bills of exchange of whatever kind they may be, must be delivered up. The Admiral will declare to the General that the British government by no means intends to confiscate his property, but merely to take upon itself the administration of his effects, to hinder him from using them as a means to promote his escape. Examination shall be made in the presence of a person named by General Bonaparte. The inventory of the effects to be retained shall be signed by this person, as well as by the rear admiral, or by the person whom he shall appoint to draw up the inventory. The interest on the principal, as his property is more or less considerable, shall be applied to his support, and in this respect, the principal arrangement is to be left to him. For this purpose, he can, from time to time, signify his wishes to the admiral till the arrival of the new governor of St. Helena, and afterwards to the latter. And if no objection is made to this proposal, the admiral or the governor can give the necessary orders, and the disbursements will be paid in bills on His Majesty's treasury. In case of death, he can dispose of his property by a last will, and may be assured that the contents of his testament shall be faithfully executed. As an attempt might be made to make a part of his property pass for the property of the persons of his suite, it must be signified that the property of his attendants is subject to the same regulation. The admiral is not to take any person on board for St. Helena without the consent of such person, to whom he is previously to explain the necessity of being subjected to all the regulations which it may be thought proper to establish for securing the person of the general. It must be made known to the general that if he make any attempt to escape, he will expose himself to close imprisonment, and that any of his suite who may be discovered in endeavoring to facilitate his escape will incur the same punishment. All letters which shall be addressed to him or to any of his suite are to be delivered in the first place to the admiral or the governor, who is to read them previously to transmitting them. The same regulation is to be observed with respect to letters written by the general or the persons of his suite. The general is to be informed that the governor and the admiral have received positive orders to forward to His Majesty's government any request or representation he may think proper to make. Nothing is left to their discretion on this point, but the paper on which such representations shall be written is to remain open, in order that they may subjoin such observations as they may think expedient. A true copy to Admiral Sir George Cockburn. The surgeon, Monsieur Murgot, was so much alarmed at the idea of being subjected to the rigorous orders of these instructions that he was half distracted, and declared plainly that nothing in the world should persuade him to set out for St. Helena. He was probably the only person in the suite of the Emperor whom the English did not wish to take the responsibility for moving. The admiral did all in his power to restore him to reason, but in vain, and Mr. Migo quitted us. Mr. O'Meara, surgeon in the Bellerophon, spoke very little French, but very good Italian. He had shown a lively interest in us, and now offered to replace Monsieur Mugo. Emperor had often remarked him during the voyage from the Isle of Aix to England, and had even questioned him several times with interest concerning the various circumstances of Sir Sidney Smith's intervention in the affairs of Egypt, knowing that at this period Mr. O'Meara had been surgeon on board the Tiger, the admiral's ship of the squadron, cruising on the coast of Egypt during the campaign of 1798 and 1799. The admiral, at the request of the emperor, hastened to take the orders of the admiralty, who granted to Mr. O'Meara unlimited leave with full pay and permission to accompany General Bonaparte to St. Helena in the exercise of the medical profession. Now, I think it's very much worth noting that they decided basically to change Napoleon's name at this point. I want people to really understand how branding works, how names work. Basically, when you can control somebody's name, you're controlling the way they're perceived. Okay? This was the Emperor Napoleon. And one day they all got together and decided that as a group, they would start calling him General Bonaparte. Okay, a title that he had 15 years before. Okay, so they are all playing pretend together. All these people in the pay of the English government. So understand where these things come from. Please. I beg you to understand where these things come from and what kind of people play these sort of games. He was the Emperor Napoleon. He earned that title. He operated with everyone in Europe as the Emperor Napoleon. And then it became make pretend time from England. Who likes to play pretend as a group? Okay. Play pretend. These are people who don't care about the truth at all. Also, very interesting that they're already planning on his death and they're taking all of his MONEY patterns and they don't change because the dynasty doesn't change. It's time for Italian. Let's see if we can get through this. I'm obviously worked up like usual. All right. All right. So time for us to see what Italian we can do. Hopefully, I don't even know if this is understandable, but I do my best. Okay. If there are any Italians out there, I'm trying to enunciate. Okay. Ripeloci del primi 9 mesi sono già trascorsi da che possiamo a questo giornale e temo sì che per le sue molte divagazioni episodiche i lettori abbiano sovente per tutto degli quella grandi e magnifica figura di Napoleone che forma il mio solo ed unico scopo per supplirvi ne faccio qui un breve sommario il quale per lo stesso motivo intendo rinnovare d'ora innanzi ogni 3 mesi. Dopo abbandonata la Francia, noi rimanevo un mese e disposizioni dai brutali e feroci ministri inglesi. La nostra attraversata di Santa Elena durò 3 mesi. Spargati nell'isola, occupavamo Briars per 2 mesi. A lungo ci siamo già da 3 mesi. Ora in questi 9 mesi un attento osservatore dei Napoleoni riconoscerebbe 4 epoche distinti. Durante il nostro soggiorno a Plymouth, Napoleone rimase paternioso e direi passivo, non apponendo ai suoi nemici che la forza dell'energia tanti erano i suoi vali e si media vidi che non si curava stoicamente più di nulla nella traversata. Egli rimasi perfettamente uguali e soprattutto affatto indifferente, senza desideri, senza disgusti. Gli si aveva per vero di maggior riguardo, ma mostravasi di non accorgersene. Parlava poco e l'argomento era estraneo sempre ai suoi interessi, a non conoscerlo e ad udire semplicemente la sua conversazione si sarebbe stati le miglia lontani dal pensare che egli fossi lo si avrebbe forse detto un illustri incaricato d'affari che si indirizza al luogo della sua missione, circondato da rispetto generale. Altre modificazioni subito durante il soggiorno di Briars. solo non volendo veder alcuno, dedicandosi interamente ed unicamente al lavoro, sembrava che avessi dimenticato agli uomini e le cose, che godessi della calma e della pace di una profonda solitudine. Non risolverei se per disprezzo o per fortezza d'animo mostrava non accorgersi delle privazioni e della angustia onde era attorniato e si anche ne faceva a volte un cenno, era solo quando che le passavano ogni limite o quando per essi veniva a soffrire alcuno dei nostri. Durante il giorno era quasi sempre occupato con la dettatura e il poco resto di tempo lo impiegava conversando familiarmente degli avvenimenti ormai non parlava. Rari volte dell'impero, rarissimo del consolato, ma molto della sua guerra d'Italia e più ancora dai particolari della sua infanzia e della prima giovinezza. A quest'ultimo argomento portava un effetto particolare e pareva che discorrendone mettasse in olliganza ogni cosa. Tanto il contento spiravagli dal volto nelle lunghe sue passeggiate notturni al chiaro della luna egli ci parlava solamente di Dio. Il nostro stabilimento a Longwe determina un quarta ed ultima modificazione. La nostra condizione, sino allora effimera e transitoria, da quel punto diveniva fissa, determinata e quel che è più durevole. La cominciava veramente il nostro esilio e i nostri nuovi destini. La ci avrebbe giudicato la storia e il mondo tutto osservato. L'imperatore forse, mosso da tali considerazioni, assumeva sempre più quella costante dignità che contrasta ad una forza maggiore, venne trincerandosi dietro un edificio morale che respingesse ogni oltraggio e lottò contro ogni offesa, niente tollerava dei suoi persecutori neppure una mancanza di forme. Credevano che gli inglesi che l'abitudine potesse produrre la familiarità, ma dal primo giorno s'avvidero del loro inganno, cosicché il più profondo rispetto regnò intorno alla sua persona. Ne ci fu di lieve sorpresa e compiacenza il vedere come tal rispetto e tal considerazione degli inglesi per l'imperatore andassero di crescendo e crescendo in modo da loro sembrar più grandi presentemente che nel passato. Non saprei dirne il motivo, come non so sin dove potranno giungere. Con noi l'imperatore riprese i suoi conversari l'esame della faccenda. Orepi metteva ad esame i progetti e la condotta dei sovrani, aggiungendo la propria. Giudicava, recideva, parlava del suo regno, dei suoi atti, a tutto dire. L'imperatore era per noi Napoleone, con ciò non intendo dire che egli avesse cessato di esserlo un solo istante, né che fossero venuti meno le nostre cure e la nostra devozione verso lui. né che la sua condotta verso di noi fosse mai stata meno che degna di lui, bensì che di non fu mai con noi di un amore più uguale, di una bontà più costante, di un'affezione più continua. Era quasi famiglia, che egli ne ricercava di consigli per combattere il comune nemico e concertava i suoi forti protesti, delle quali le più vigorose non furono quasi mai combinate nella eroicità del rispetto, ma in mezzo alla risa nostra e alla nostra gaiezza. Napoleon said, those guys are saying that Napoleon was doing everything to put a brave face on things and to set a good example, keep everybody's spirits up, that he was always a great leader. And it was in St. Helena that he realized how great Napoleon was. Lescaz always says that. He adored Napoleon. He was a member of the Council of State. So he was one of the legislators under Napoleon, and Napoleon gave opportunities to aristocrats, and he brought them back into France because Napoleon was a uniter. He gave this opportunity to Lescaz, and Lescaz came to admire him, almost worship him, and Napoleon kept him at arm's length. So a lot of the good people Napoleon kept at arm's length while he let these infiltrators in, and that's the truth. And as St. Helena starts to realize that Lescaz was always on his side, but Lescaz was a very shy person, and he was like scared to talk in public. So he didn't put himself in front of Napoleon. And Napoleon's always faulting him for that. Like, why didn't you put yourself in front of me? Why didn't you show me how I could have helped you? But I guess Lescaz was kind of shy. So he's saying that he only found out how great Napoleon was in St. Helena. All right, so we're getting back into Lavalette in French. Lavallette's in jail, awaiting his execution for running the post office, part of the terrorism of 1815. And I want people to know that there really are terrorists running our governments. And 200 years this has been going on. And they're so good at tricking people that they don't even see what's going on right in front of them. And that's hard. You know, when you're somebody who can see what's going on and you can see the other people can't see, it's very isolating for those of us who can see the truth. And that's the way it's supposed to be, you know? So people can't hear us when we tell them the truth. It's all on purpose. It's a psychological warfare. And they're amazing at it. They're incredible at psychological warfare because you can see that that's what's really going on. As we're turned against ourselves, we're demoralized from our earliest days. So we won't have the courage to stand up for ourselves. Okay. Le soir, je m'approchais de Madame Bonaparte. Elle était prévenue pour l'oubliant, me montrer de la satisfaction et m'appelait son neveu. Demain, me dit-elle, nous irons tous à Saint-Germain. Je vous présenterai à ma nièce. Vous en serez enchantés. Elle est charmante, effectivement. Le lendemain, nous montâmes en calèche. Le général, Madame Bonaparte et Eugène, et nous descendîmes chez Madame Campagne. C'était un grand événement. Tous les pensionnaires étaient aux fenêtres, dans le salon, dans le cul, car on avait donné congé. Bientôt, on descendit dans les jardins, et parmi ce troupeau de 40 jeunes personnes, j'ai cherché avec qui toutes celles qui m'étaient destinées. Sa cousine Hortense nous l'amena pour saluer. Le général est embrassé sa tante. Elle était effectivement la plus jolie. Une taille élevée, d'une élégance pleine de grâce, un visage charmant, de belles colloque et la confusion augmentée, mais son timidité, un embarras qui fit rire le maître, mais il n'alla pas plus loin et fut décidé qu'on déjeunerait dans les jardins, sur l'herbe, j'étais ce montant. Force cieux, voudrait-elle de moi? Obéirait-elle pas son répugnant, ce mariage si brusque, ce départ si prompt, mais chagrinant quand on fut les véhicules, le cercle fut rompu. J'ai prié Eugène de conduire sa cousine dans une allée solitaire. Je les rejoignis. Elle nous quitta. J'entrai alors en conversation. Je ne lui cachai ni ma naissance, ni mon peu de fortune. Je ne lui dis que mon épée et la bienveillance du général. Et je vous quitte donc à Dieu. Ouvrez-vous à votre cœur. Je me sens disposée à vous aimer de toute mon âme. Mais cela ne suffit pas. Si cette union n'est pas de votre goût, confiez-le-moi. Il ne me sera pas difficile de trouver un prétexte pour la rompre. J'obtiendrai mon éloignement. Vous ne serez pas tourmenté. Je garderai votre secret. Élevez les yeux basés. Pour toute réponse, elle sourit. Elle me donna le bouquet qu'elle tenait à la main. Je l'embrassai. Nous revînmes lentement vers la campagne. À 8 heures après, nous allâmes à la municipalité. Le lendemain, un pauvre prêtre instrumenté nous maria dans le petit couvent de la Conception, rue Saint-Honoré. C'était un peu frais de fantôme, mais Amélie y tenait beaucoup, car elle avait une pitié douce et sincère. Anyway, this is one of the very big moments of this book. So Lovelet's in jail, and he's remembering back when Napoleon set him up with Emily, this golden day before all these terrible things happened to them. I can't deal with it. So Eugène, who is Napoleon's stepson and Hortense's brother, Napoleon goes to Hortense's school, his stepdaughter's school, where she goes to school with Emily, her cousin. And they come to bring Lavalette to meet Emily, and Emily, Hortense brings Napoleon. I can't even talk about this. Anyway, so Lavalette gets to go into a little alley with Emily, and Eugène coordinates it, Napoleon's stepson. And he says to Emily, look, if you don't want to marry me, I'll get you out of this. I'm going to leave in 15 days for Egypt. Open your heart to me. I could give you my whole soul, but if you don't want this, I'm not going to make you get into this. And she just hands her bouquet over to him and looks down and doesn't really say anything. But then, we learn in Hortense's memoirs that after the marriage is over, Emily's miserable. She really loved Louis Bonaparte, which is Napoleon's brother, who was very handsome. And Lovelet was not very handsome, but Lovelet was very good. And it's not that Louis wasn't good. He was kind of crazy. I think he was good deep down, but he went crazy with jealousy with Hortense because it's a whole other story. Anyways, this is kind of a beautiful moment where he's remembering how beautiful things were before this monstrous thing moved in on all of them and destroyed their lives. And that's what I'm constantly going on and on about. We're up against a very serious destructive group, and they have not gone anywhere. But once upon a time, things were good before they destroyed the beautiful reign of Napoleon, which was there's so much hope and promise in it. And I hope that we all get together and start standing up for each other so we can have a beautiful day in the future, because we're not in one right now. All right, so we're going to get to the next thing, which is the slow murder of Napoleon of natural causes, right? Takes a lot of work to kill somebody natural causes like this. And as I've said, there's a very high body count of all the people who had to die. So the people who owned the English government could tell everybody that Napoleon died of natural causes. He did not. Everything was done to kill him prematurely. Why? Why is it so important to kill populists? You can answer that question for yourself. It's really scary that the people in charge, hate us so much. But that is the facts. I mean, I know they're very mad at me for saying these things, but they need to be said by somebody. And, somehow I'm still going. So, anyway, time for this Corsican doctor telling you about this incredibly painful, slow murder of natural causes. So many of these natural causes deaths that we're always seeing. Okay, so this is a very preferred pattern of this group. 23 de septiembre. Igual estado. Persiste el emperador en su designio de tomar el área. A este fin monta a caballo, después en coche, y se vio obligado a poco rato a retroceder y meterse en la cama. Continuó durante algunos días en semejante ejercicio, persuadido de que el movimiento es la primera medicina. Pero el sol, la tos y el frío que circula por sus miembros le obligan a suspender sus correrías. 3 días después se emprende de nuevo y entre alternativas de bien y de mal llega hasta el 3 de octubre, día en que le entra un entorpecimiento general que solo se disipa acercándose el fuego. Las extremidades interiores tardan mucho en calentarse y apenas lo están cuando le acometen contradicciones convulsivas, tiene la cabeza pesada en extremo. 4 de octubre a las 2 de la tarde vuelve de paseo el emperador excesivamente fatigado. Secuestra y pide que le dejen descansar. Había hecho una carrera de 2 leguas y media, parte a caballo y parte en caliza. Se había apiado en casa de Mr. Davidson, donde me ha dicho ha almorzado y bebido 3 vasos de vino de champaña. Padeció un violento dolor de cabeza, una ansiedad general, tos seca y nerviosa, el rostro pálido en extremo, los ojos abatidos, el pulso pequeño y nervioso. 5 de octubre continúa quejándose el emperador del dolor de cabeza a pesar de que es menos violento que ayer. Se ha aumentado mucho el dolor del hígado y se extiende hasta el hombro derecho. Pesadez incómoda y un profundo dolor se manifiesta todavía en el hipocondrio izquierdo. En cuanto a los demás síntomas, no ofrecen ningún cambio sensible. Sale Napoleón al jardín a hacer un poco de ejercicio. 6, 7, 8 y 9 de octubre. El mal tiempo ha impedido a Napoleón salir en caliza, pero se ha paseado por el jardín. Persiste en estarse 2 horas en un baño caliente a una temperatura elevada. Yo trato de empuñar esta costumbre y me responde que en Egipto la siguen y que de ella ha obtenido los más saludables efectos. No dejaban tampoco de reprenderme a vuestros colegas diciendo que yo iba a tenerla, que si yo, qué enfermedad decían que me resultaría, pues sin embargo no tuve ninguna y lo pasé perfectamente. Mas me sirvió mi instinto que la ciencia de Hipócrates Muchísimas opinión ganaron mi cepillo y mi franela, que todos sus aforismos. No digo esto por vos, pues estoy lleno de confianza en vuestras luces, pero tengo mi experiencia conmigo y me agrada conservar mis ideas. So Napoleon's always arguing with his doctors. He doesn't want to take medicine. And in this case, he certainly does not want to take medicine at all. That's something he's really does not want to do. Doesn't trust medicine. But as we all know, those of us who've been listening to memoirs, Napoleon loved his bath. Loved his hot baths, crazy hot baths. Anyway, so the doctor's saying that hot baths are not good for you. He's saying, I respectfully disagree. This has been working for me since Egypt. I know what I'm doing. Leave me alone. Essentially. Anyway, he starts to spend a lot of time in his bath at St. Helena. Anyway, so time for German. This is still the conquest of Italy in every little detail. The generals, how many men he had, how many men they had. I don't really know how to even explain it because it's just him describing his wars. Anyway, let's see what we can do. Saruk, we'll do our best, okay? Übergabe von Mantua, von da an waren wir außer aller Unruhe wegen Mantua. Seit seiner Zeit die Garnison schon auf halber Nation gesetzt. Alle Befehle waren aufgesetzt, diese Würmser, die Resultate der Schlacht von Rivoli wissen. Konnte auf nichts mehr hoffen. Man sollte ihn auf sich zu ergeben. Stolz antwortete dass Lebensmittel auf ein Jahr habe. Doch begab sich einige Tage darauf Klenau, sein erster Generaladjutant in seriöser Hauptquartier, beteuerte, dass die Garnison noch auf 3 Monate Lebensmittel habe. Dass aber der Marschall überzeugte, dass das Streiker die Festung nichts erregten Zeit entsessen können sein Benehmen nach Bedingungen einrichten wolle, die man ihm vorschlagen werde. Serurier antwortete, dass darüber die Befehl des Obergenerals einholen wolle. Napoleon begab sich nach Vorverbellung. Serurier ließ Klenau herbeirufen, der französischen General in seinen Überrock gehüllt, aber sicher nicht zu erkennen. Die Unterredung begann zwischen Serurier und Klenau. Klenau wendete alle gefährliche Mittel an und sprach länger über die großen Hilfsmittel, die Worms übrig geblieben und die Masse von Lebensmitteln, welche dieser in seinen Reservemagazinen habe. Der französischen General näherte sich dem Tisch und schrieb in etwa einer halben Stunde seine Scheidungen neben Firmenservice-Schläger nieder, während die Entscheidung zwischen Serurien und Klenaustedt sofort dauerte. Als fertig war, sagte zu Klenau, wenn Firmen noch auch nur auf Achsen wie 20 Tage Lebensmittel hat und von Übergabe spricht, so verdient keine ehrenvolle Kapitulation. herzieht die Bedingungen, die ich ihm suggestiere, fügt hinzu, indem Surveiller die Papier übergab. Die werden darin besonders bemerken, dass für seine Personenfreiheit sein soll, weil ich sein Habits Alter und seine Verdienste ehre und ich will, dass das Opfer von intriganten Werte, die ihm in Wien böses Spiel machen konnten, öffnet er mir morgen die Tür, so bewillige ich ihm die hier niedergeschriebenen Bedingungen, so gilt noch 14 Tage, einen Monat, ein Jahr, 2, so soll er immer noch dieselben bekommen. Er kann also bis zum letzten Wissenbruch aushalten. Ich selbst gehe sogleich über den Po und marschiere nach Rom. Sie können meinen Gesinnungen hinterbringen. Sie ihren General. Kleinau, welcher bei den ersten Worten die Sache noch nie begriff, wusste doch dann bald mit wem er zu tun habe. Er ließ sich die Bedingungen geben und als er sie gelesen, fühlte er sich von Dank und Bewunderung über ein so großmütiges und unerwartetes Benehmen durchdrungen von Verstellung verliebt war die Rede und er gestand, dass sie nur noch auf 3 Tage Lebensmittel hätten. Worms ließ den französischen General bitten, dass da dieser Ober dann gehen müsse. Die Sumatur geschehen mochte, wodurch er viel Umwege und Schwierigkeiten vermeiden konnte. Es wären aber schon alle Bedrohungen für die Siege getroffen. Worms schrieb er mit Ausdrücken seiner vollen Denkbarkeit und schickte ihm bald darauf einen Adjutanten nach Bologna, um ihn von einem Vergiftungseinschlag zu unterrichten, der in der Romagna gegen ihn ausgeführt werden solle, indem er ihm überall Auskunft gab, wie er sich dagegen bewahl, führte also das Präsidium bei den Einheiten der Übergabe von Raststaber von dessen Armee bei sich für beide verlieren. Napoleon war schon in der Romagna die Gleichgültigkeit mit Völkersieg einem so schmeichelhaften Schauspiel entzog wie ein Feldmarschall von Generalismus der österreichischen Heere, der an der Spitze seines Generalstabs ihm seinen Degen Obergau gefährdet haben musste, war ein Gegenstand des Staunens, das ganze Europa ergriff. All right, that's all the fun for tonight. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful evening.